Well, hi, Stu Bamey coming to you from Pawleys Island, South Carolina. And we've been talking about hope in troubled times, the seven wonders of the spiritual world. And we've been saying that we have this all-knowing, ever-present, all-powerful, ever-loving God. And in this message, I want to talk about how this kind of God guides us through the seasons of life. I want to talk about that guidance of God through a great Christmas story about kings and magi and a mother and a father and a little baby. We read in Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, these words, "Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod, the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, 'Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him.'" Have you noticed that everywhere we go in the Christmas season, we see nativity scenes, Mary, Joseph, Jesus, the shepherds, a star, and wise men? You know, there are a lot of misconceptions about the wise men. They come from the hymn, "We, three kings of Orient are." Tried to light a rubber cigar. It was loaded and exploded. That's how they got so far. Well, in reality, there weren't three. They weren't from the Orient, and they didn't arrive for several weeks to a year later after the child was born. So who were these strange visitors who had come from the East? Well, to answer that question, we have to look at three words in the story of the birth of Jesus: watch, wait, and worship. And the first word is watch. Daniel writes in chapter 2, verse 48, "Then the king gave Daniel high honors and many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon." Did you catch that? 600 years before the birth of Jesus, there is this Hebrew refugee by the name of Daniel, and he is taken into captivity by Babylon. Over time, he proves to have such wisdom that the king appoints him master of the Hakami, in the Greek, the Magi, not a magician, but men of learning, of great skills in mathematics and medicine and astronomy and literature. They were ancient day truth seekers. And Daniel told them in chapter 7, verses 13 through 14, that one day, he told the wise men, the ancient day king seekers, he said, one day there will come a great king, and he will reconcile wandering hearts to a loving God, and his birth will be marked by certain heavenly signs or clues. And this is where things get really interesting. Daniel teaches these ancient day king seekers, these magi, he teaches them the Holy Scriptures. And he tells them that certain signs will come. He teaches them Numbers 24. "I see him, but not now. Behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel." I see him, but not now. Something is going to happen, Daniel was saying, in the future. Can't see it now, it will happen in the future. What's going to happen in the future? There's going to be certain signs. A star will appear that wasn't there before. There will be a nation that will have a patriarch by the name of Jacob, who God later names Israel. So there's a nation of Jacob, or Israel. There will be a king who holds a great scepter, a staff in his hand, a symbol of authority and dominion and rule. These three signs: a star, a nation, and a king. In Micah chapter 5, verse 2, we read, "But you, O Bethlehem Ephrathah, who are too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall come forth one who is to be a ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from of old, from the ancient of days." More signs. 4. This son will come from Bethlehem, Ephrathah, a backwater, tiny little insignificant sheep village. Not born in Rome or Greece, the center of the world, but out of the way in a very small place. Out of this very small place, a very great king will come. And who tells you this? The Ancient of Days. This is a reference from Amos chapter 9, verse 11. He refers to the Ancient of Days, the time of David and of Ruth who had a kinsman redeemer in Boab, who had a son by the name of Oved, who had a son by the name of Jesse, who had a son by the name of David, who was fathering the tribe of the Lion of Judah. So we have Bethlehem. We have an Ancient of Days. There's more. Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. A virgin will give birth to a son. A miracle. It's the miracle of the incarnation that God's Son will be born, fully God, fully man, and she shall hold him in her arms. Who could but rejoice at so great a gift as Mary and Joseph looking at the face of God born to them? It's a spiritual moment that a child has conceived through the spiritual wonders of the working of God to these two people. And finally, his name shall be called Emmanuel. In the Hebrew, God with us. The miracle of the incarnation, that God has come to be known and touched and held, and he has come to reveal himself and to reveal all of the wonders of God. At that Christmas season, it is a time when God wants us to watch, to be open and available to his presence, that his presence is around you and me this very moment when we come to the Christmas season. The Magi knew who this one was and where he was to come from. They just didn't know when. So they watched and they waited, and they never forgot the teachings of Daniel to search and search and search. They searched for 600 years for a star, a nation, a king from Bethlehem, out of the seed of David, from a virgin who will give birth to God's Son, and he shall be called Emmanuel. The amazing wonders, spiritual wonders of how the Holy Scriptures foretells us all of this in advance, before it ever happens. Who could but rejoice at so great a gift as the birth of this child? So watch and then wait. Wait, says the Ancient of Days, you truth seekers, you king makers. Listen to what Matthew writes in chapter 2. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. There were these ancient day truth seekers, these king makers, and they had waited 600 years for the signs that would come. There are these high-ranking officials in the ancient world. They're advisors to the king of Persia and Babylon, a royal priesthood. Historians tell us that they were so powerful that no Persian could ever become king unless they were approved by the Magi. And when they finally saw the long-awaited star, they made a 1,000-mile journey on horseback, seeking the newborn king. So when the ancient day kingmakers unexpectedly charged into Jerusalem with their entourage of 1,000 people, riding Persian horses, looking for a king of the Jews, it was a big deal. And when they arrived, they ran straight into Herod the Great, who was appointed by the Roman Senate to rule Palestine between 17 BC and 4 AD. And everything he ever did or said was calculated to establish his power over the people of Israel. Herod was ruthless. When he heard that the Pharisees didn't like him, the Jewish leaders of the day, he gathered the leaders together in an arena, and he locked the gate, and he burned them alive. And if that were not enough, he took their ashes and he spread them all over the country. He was sending a message: I'm king around here. I'm in charge around here. And if that were not enough, he was afraid of his two sons, that they were going to take over the kingdom. So he executed them because they were such a threat to the throne, killing his own sons. So the Magi, they're waiting, they're watching for 600 years. When the star appeared, they knew that God was on the move, and it was time for them to move. It was the time for the coronation. And when Herod got word of that coronation, that a king was born in his neighborhood, in his backyard, he was deeply troubled. So he ordered all of the firstborn male Hebrew children to be killed. It was called the massacre of the innocents. But the Magi knew that the time was now fulfilled. The Old Testament prophecies were fulfilled of the coronation of the king, not by appointment of the Roman Empire or the high priests, the religious elite of the day, but by God himself. A lot of people are searching after truth these days, seeking answers to the basic questions of life. Why am I here? Where did I come from? Where are we headed? What is going on in our world? Is there a God? Does he know me? Does he care about me? Can he lead me? Can he guide me? I mean, these are important questions. And I want to assure you and me that if we're spiritual seekers, you're in good company. You have a lot in common with the Magi. So much of life is waiting and watching to see how things will turn out. They waited 600 years. God may be silent, but he's never still. And much of life, much of the seasons of our lives are waiting until God moves. 600 years. What was God during that time? He was preparing the world. He may be silent, but he's never still. He was preparing the Roman Empire to be united, to unite the whole world under one commerce and coinage and language and government. It's the doctrine of the providence of God, that beneath the visible world, the world that we see, is the invisible hand of God at work, even when we don't see it. So they're watching and they're waiting for the hand of God to move. Maybe you find yourself in a place of seeking and wondering and watching and waiting. You're in good company with the Magi. Watch, wait, worship. Matthew 2:2. Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. The Magi, the ancient day kingmakers. It's not by accident that the Magi saw the star at night. It's interesting to know that we can't see stars during the daytime. They only shine in the darkness. We had Charlie Duke, an astronaut who walked on the moon, to speak in our church, Apollo 16. And after church, we had lunch. Susan and I had lunch with Charlie and his wife. And he said, he told us amazing, amazing stories about his time on the moon. But he said, one of the things that we noticed is that you can't see the stars. The sun's always shining where we were. And so we couldn't see the stars. You can only see the stars in the dark. And that's why the Magi could only travel at night in the darkness. It's in the darkness that God leads us. It's in the darkness that the stars shine. Sooner or later, all of us will find ourselves wandering in the darkness. It might be an unexpected turn of events or a financial setback or a betrayal or an illness or a loss, a big loss. I don't know what it is, but all of us will find ourselves walking in the darkness at some point in our lives. But you see, it's in the darkness that God is often about his greatest work. I want to say that one more time. It's in the darkness that God is often about his greatest work. It's where he finds us. It's where he draws us to him, in the darkness. In the darkness, when we find ourselves in the darkness, it only means that God is not finished yet. We are still on the journey. And when they found that king, that little baby, they crowned him. They gave him great gifts. They fell and worshiped. They adored him. They honored him. They praised him. They gave thanks to him. The message of this story and the message of the Christmas season is that God has not left us alone on our own as wandering cosmic shoppers, wondering what's the meaning and the purpose of the universe and of my life, but he leads us and he guides us. He tells us, watch, wait, and worship. And maybe in the middle of the busyness of this season or whatever season it is that you're watching this video, you can stop and watch. Be responsive to God's leading of his signs. Where is he? Ask this question. Where are you trying to speak to me this very moment, God? What are you trying to say to me? Where are you trying to touch me and reveal yourself to me? And wait, knowing that it's in the waiting that God is about his greatest work, and worship, adore him. I mean, this is one of the keys to life, is to simply every single day worship, adore, praise, and honor our great God. The Magi, ancient day king seekers. ancient day king makers. They watched, they waited, they traveled 1,000 miles to worship this newborn king, Emmanuel, God with us. And my prayer is that as you listen to this video, you will watch for signs, for God's inner prompting, for scriptures, for something that a friend might say to you. You'll watch, you'll be open and available to his signs, his wonders, and wait on him, his time, and in his way, and worship our Lord Jesus Christ. May you be able to worship him this time as you watch this video, this day, in a way that you never have before. God guides us. Watch, wait, and worship.